Well, good morning, everyone. It's Friday, and welcome to the vicarage here at St Bart's and St Anne's at Penn. Lovely to see you, and it's really good that you are here with us today. So thank you for being with us. Just to remind you, this weekend we have lots of good services, as always, but one special one this weekend because it's Advent Sunday. We have got an Advent carol service instead of Evensong on Sunday night. It's a lovely choral experience of worship, a really good way of getting ourselves ready as we begin Advent. Prepare for the coming of Jesus and Christmas and so on. That's Sunday evening, 5:30. But whatever you are, whether you're joining us online or whether you're joining us in person, it will be lovely to see you. Friends, as you know, we are getting towards the back end now of the first letter of Paul to Timothy, this young church leader in this place called Ephesus. Tricky little situation there. And so we're getting towards the back end now. And he's giving him instructions really about how the church should be run. And tucked in there is one of my favourite verses. You'll see why when we come to it. This is 1 Timothy 5, starting to read at verse 17. Let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honour, especially those who labour in preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain, and the labourer deserves to be paid. Never accept an accusation against an elder, except on the base evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. As for those who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so the rest may stand in fear. In the presence of God and of Christ Jesus and all the elect angels, I warn you to keep those instructions without prejudice, doing nothing on the basis of partiality. Do not ordain anyone hastily, and do not participate in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure. No longer drink only water, but take a little wine for the sake of your stomach and of your frequent ailments. The sins of some people are conspicuous and precede them to judgment, while the sins of others follow them there. So also good works are conspicuous, even when they're not, they cannot remain hidden. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Well, tucked in there, an instruction. He tells him to drink, don't just drink water, drink wine also for the sake of your frequent ailments. It's kind of tucked in there. And 2 reasons I like that verse. Firstly, because he's telling him to drink wine. Of course, yeah, that's nice, isn't it? But also because it's kind of in there, it doesn't really fit. It's very Paul. Paul tends to be like that. He tends to sort of go off on one from time to time. It's all a bit disjointed, but it's typical Paul to stick that little instruction, almost like, while I'm thinking about it, there it is. So apart from that, what's this reading about? Well, I think it's about how churches should be smoothly run, really. I think he looks firstly at what to do when things are going well, when ministry is going well. I think secondly, he looks at what to do when things get difficult. And thirdly, he talks about who to ordain, if you like, and who not to. I'll talk firstly about when things are going well. Basically, when things are going well, he says it's right that people should be honoured. He talks about elders who do good preaching and teaching should be double honoured. There's even this talk that it might actually be compensated, it might actually be financial is the implication here as well. But it really means honour. And it's actually right to honour people when things are going well and to encourage people. And actually not to breathe down their neck and to give them all the encouragement you can get. He used this lovely analogy, don't muzzle an ox when it threshes the grain. I don't know much about farming, but my guess is if an ox is doing really well and going around like it's supposed to do, then don't cover its mouth, because actually let it breathe, let it flourish. And I think actually we need to do that with church ministries that are going well. It's actually not to control them all the time, but to let them flourish, let them be, let them do well, and encourage people when things are going really well. I just think it's really important that we do that. As I say, so if a ministry is going really well, then I think we should give them encouragement, and not control them and not inhibit them and not sort of direct them all the time. But actually, if a ministry is going really well, we should give it lots of encouragement. That's the first thing. Second thing is what to do when things get difficult. Really, it's about what to do when ministers do naughty things and foul up, because unfortunately they do. Now, there are 2 problems with this. Firstly, this. Some people have this idea, and I know a lot of clergy do, that somehow being a vicar is a job for life, and therefore it's a kind of divine entitlement to job for life. And that isn't right, because actually, if clergy foul up, then clergy should be punished for it. No one's above the law, and actually there should be. And actually, the church over the years has got into terrible trouble recently, because when people have really badly fouled up. They've kind of taken them away, tried to recycle them and put them in somewhere else, and we've got into all sorts of difficulties. So I think the first thing we have to say is there, and Paul is quite clear here, there has to be some kind of punishment, if you like, when vicars really foul up. If vicars do naughty things, there should not be tenure for life, actually. No one's above the law, including clergy. And there has to be a system whereby, if there's some kind of disciplinary system, there has to be, and there really should be. So the first problem is that somehow people have this idea that somehow they're entitled to a job for life, and we shouldn't be, and we mustn't be. The other thing is, though, sometimes people make complaints for frivolous reasons. So, when a vicar makes a controversial decision, or a decision that some people don't like, what some people do is they put in frivolous complaints about them to try and get them into trouble, because either to try and oppose a decision that the vicars like, or they don't like them, or whatever it would be. And that's not right either. And that's why Paul talks here about it has to be on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses. It cannot just simply a single person going off on one, if you know what I mean. What he's really saying is when complaints come in, they need to be treated carefully, without partiality, but also they can't be frivolous. They can't be sort of stupid. They've got to have some substance to them as well. So I think with this thing is when about ministers that foul up. Firstly, there has to be a disciplinary system. It should not be a job for life. Actually, if clergy foul up, and if ministers foul up, then they should carry the consequences for that. But that the process should be fair, and it should be serious, and it should be done properly. So I think that's the second thing. So he's given Timothy instructions here. What to do when ministers foul up. There has to be a system, a disciplinary system, but it cannot be trivial. It has to be impartial, and it has to be done properly. So that's what to do when things go wrong. So when things are going right, okay, then you should give people encouragement and not muzzle ox when it threshes the grain and pay them and everything else. On the other hand, also that when things go wrong, there has to be a system, but it's got to be fair, and there has to be one. That's the second thing. The third thing he talks about, though, he says here, do not lay hands quickly on anybody. By laying hands, it means like ordination, like making someone ministers. And I think there's some important things here. Actually, when someone gets or wants to be or feels some kind of calling to be ordained, that has to be tested. And when someone wants to be ordained or someone feels called, they should go and see their parish priest or whatever. And they have to go through a series of interviews. And it can be frustratingly slow sometimes. It really can. I've been there. And it can be, as I say, it can be frustratingly slow. But there has to be one. Because we shouldn't be ordaining people on the basis of a funny feeling from last night's curry, or somebody unhelpful, or somebody that's divisive or whatever. There has to be a process. And that's what I think he means by don't lay hands on anybody hastily. Because he points out that sometimes, people's inner sins, if you like, can take time someone can look very good on the face of it, and look very impressive, but actually as things go on, things get you start realizing what's really going on. But other people, on the other hand, you may look as though they haven't got what it takes. Actually, time may show that they really have. So what Paul is saying to Timothy here is, take your time. Don't ordain anybody hastily. Take your time. Let God sort out the wheat from the chaff, the men from the boys, the sheep from the goats, whatever. And on the basis of that, ordain the right people in time, and don't be in a rush. So lots this morning, really, about how to run a church. Paul has sent this guy, Timothy, this young man, into this clearly hotbed of controversy at Ephesus. Clearly not an easy church to run. There are churches like that, I can assure you. And Paul's giving him advice, really, about how to make a church run well. So when things are going well, he says, give people encouragement. And things are going really well, give them double honour, double encouragement, because don't muzzle an ox when it threshes the grain. Secondly, when things are difficult, if there's some thought that somebody's fouling up, there has to be some kind of disciplinary system. Nobody should ever have tenure for life, but that system has to be impartial, and it's got to be done properly on the basis of more than one witness. Also, though, the third thing to say is about who to ordain and who not to ordain. What Paul is saying here is, take your time. Don't be in a rush. Let God sort out the wheat from the chaff. Things will become clear in time, and that's the way to do it. Hope you have a lovely weekend. Good to see you.